My father was keep telling me, Lahore mein maine dafan hona hai, Lahore mujhe leke jaana hai. And I'm like, this is a big deal. I was thinking, why is this a problem for him? Why is not dying a problem for him? Why is being buried in America a problem for him? It was 9/11 going on. We couldn't get live people out of America at that time. He'll be literally disappointed. ये क्या किया तुमने लोगों ने मेरे साथ? ये मैंने बेटे पाले. एक काम नहीं कर सकते. I mean, we couldn't for the 3 days. We didn't bury him for 3 days. And flight check कर रहे हैं. We're checking up everything. कोई चीज मिल जाए. No, nothing's gonna go out of America, buddy. Nothing. Especially a coffin. Live people are not gonna go out. You sending a coffin out? No, it's not gonna happen. And Marvin Jabal is holding his hand. Mat chode, don't let go of my hand. And Prophet ﷺ is also not letting go of his hand. You know, both of them are like aware that this is the last time he's holding the Prophet ﷺ's hand. And Prophet ﷺ is keep telling him that it doesn't matter, Maz, where you're going or where you're going to live or how far you are. As long as you are nearer to Islam, you're with me. That's what I'm going to tell to all overseas Muslims. Guys, Assalamu alaikum. Let's just keep it in English, please, because of obvious reasons. We're doing this for people who do not have a good understanding of Urdu. Assalamu alaikum. Begin proceedings for people, specifically questions which are asked by our kids, especially teenagers. Keep it to that specific topic. We're going to capture more of our parenting issues more than anything else, inshallah. Inshallah. Let's begin getting notifications from everywhere. We're going to be doing a tour, inshallah, Scandinavia, inshallah. It's not locked yet, but Norway. We're paperwork is still being done for Norway and Sweden. I think Finland or Sweden. Doing, inshallah, three sessions in Norway and 3 in Sweden and Finland, inshallah. Well, I have to go to Denmark anyway because of that very reason, but there is no scheduled session in Denmark. But if there is one, and if there is a possibility, I'll definitely be in Denmark, inshallah. This is spring. We're talking about spring, February, and inshallah, Norway, Finland, and probably Denmark. Not so sure about Denmark. I am scheduled to be in Denmark, but not for a session. So whoever is in Norway, please wait for the dates. We'll be releasing the itinerary last week of January, inshallah, for Norway, Finland, and Sweden. Okay, so it's more of a North American tour, but this is where most of our invitations were coming from. There were more clusters who knew exactly how to arrange a session. They did it really well. The Norwegian and Finnish Muslims, they have been pursuing this for quite a while. We did not have enough time because it takes a week before and a week after. So it's not so easy to just say yes. So this is why we know how important these specific sessions are for overseas Muslims, especially teenagers. This is a parenting tour, nothing else. Well, everything else is included in there, but we're doing a parenting session. This series is for parenting specific issues, Muslim psychology, and understanding the problems that Muslim parents are going to have raising the 10-year-olds and who are about to enter the teenagers and people who have kids who are already teenagers, inshallah. So again, let me just reiterate: Norway, Finland, and Sweden, inshallah. Okay. This is a scheduled tour by the people. I'm actually saying yes to anybody who's inviting because of this tour. I'm scheduled to be in Toronto in spring, inshallah. So it'll be 3-4 days in each country, inshallah. Let me just turn off the bells. You're right. There you go. No more bells. So This was just a quick announcement for the Scandinavian Muslims. We are planning a long tour across the North American continent. I'll be stationed in Denmark and then Toronto, inshallah, for 10 days each. During this tour, I'll be scheduled in Denmark for the Norway and Swedish tour. I'll be traveling before and after the session from Copenhagen. So let's begin proceedings. Let's just pick it up with the Scandinavian Muslims. I'm going to just change your names or add your country name in the bracket, so that I would actually try and focus specifically on you guys in Norway or in Sweden. Okay, so just don't speak Swedish or Danish. Jag förstår icke. When you're going to be very specific, just try and be as English as possible. Okay. By the way, there is no England in the tour yet. Okay. English Muslims. We're going to be doing a separate tour for the United Kingdom, inshallah, on my way back, inshallah. Okay. So let's just talk to Scandinavia today. Let's just see if I have any Scandinavians. Anybody close to Scandinavia? Let's just talk about specific dates and reasonings. All of these sessions will be recorded, inshallah. I'm not taking my media team with me, so whoever is arranging the session, if he wants or she wants to arrange the session, you'll have to arrange that media yourself. Okay. We don't charge. I don't charge for these sessions, so you'll have to put a little bit in there. Okay, let's just start with England. Abdullah, assalamu alaikum.
Yes, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yeah, thank you for giving me the time, first of all. My question arises, the last time you told us about the Allama Iqbal. So as soon as I started to read him, so my point comes in, what different we are going to make what he couldn't do like 100 years ago. So what I see is we are actually having the same message what he already had 100 years ago. So what you think was done differently and what we can do differently now, and how you think we should incorporate Allama Iqbal in all our Muslim identity concept?
Allama Iqbal was all about the Muslim identity. Actually, if anything, he actually tried to reconstruct it. He was suffering from primarily the same problems we're suffering from. Obviously, he had a little bit of an edge because he had that edge in a way that Muslims are obviously under the rule of a non-Muslim regime. So it was more of an edge. We are actually being deceived by the fact that we actually assume that we are under the Muslim regime because of this weird constitution that we're actually living under. We should change the philosophy of this constitution right away. We keep claiming that it is from the doctrine of the Qur'an, and Iqbal would have approved of it. Obviously, Iqbal would not have approved of it. I think this is a good angle to look at our Declaration of Independence and our constitution. This is by far not approved by any Sahabi, any Prophet, any thinker who's actually aware of what the Constitution of Islam is. I'm not saying it is against the core principles of Islam. I'm just saying it does not suffice for whatever Islam actually requires specifically in this day and age. Iqbal actually did start there. He not only started there, he actually had more of his more of his writing was about the fact that we have to reconstruct the way Muslims actually are approaching the very concept of Islam. And it was a big backlash that he actually faced because of the word that he used, which is reconstruction. Because classical scholars were talking about the re-establishment, and he said no reconstruction of the the very religious thought. Now, once we do go through the prose, the actual text of what Iqbal wrote in his book, not his poetry, not just his poetry, but the actual, length that he went to, uh, which I did a few times, not just a couple of times. I can see the kind of anguish that he's actually expressing. We are actually practically trying to um, well, revisit the very everybody goes through, any thinking Muslim goes through revisiting the very anguish that Iqbal was going through. Iqbal came from a time where Europe was very visibly going through a transit as well, especially Nietzsche and the Ubermensch. That actually became quite a thing. And he was in Germany at the time where Europe itself was experimenting. So he had the first-hand knowledge of how things how people can react, how mass can change its behavior, and did change its behavior. But we can see Iqbal and the way he's actually looking and comparing Europe and the subcontinent Muslims. We can see that very clearly. Now, it's such a weird irony that anybody can easily say now with a lot of confidence that if Iqbal were to be born today, he would have done literally the same things. He would have actually written the same book, because we didn't move an inch of wherever he wanted us to move from. And that's the bigger problem, because, we need not just one guy or a book. We need a lot of people who come up with a synergy towards understanding and then committing to that understanding that, yes, you know what, we got to do something. And where do we start? We start with our kids. Now, it's only 3 generations before Iqbal, right? Iqbal is literally 100 years older than me. I am exactly 100 years. I was born 100 years later. And now I can still find Iqbal as relevant as yesterday. That's a big failure on our part. Very big failure on our part. Why is Iqbal still relevant? We should have outgrown ourselves, but we didn't. In fact, I think we retracted. That's what I'm saying. If Iqbal were to be born today, he would have had to have written the same book. Not even an alphabet or a syllable would have changed. Well, even if somebody would argue that it would have changed, it would have changed because Germany is not the same anymore. That's the only reason why Iqbal would have changed, if there was ever to be any kind of change in his poetry or any kind of thought. So yeah, well, we need to revisit whatever he was going through, the way he wrote it, the kind of reason he had to write all of whatever he wrote. It's pretty shameful, very shameful. And we've seen the lights of a few great names, not just one or two, in the last 100 years in this very soil. But it didn't really matter, did it? Dr. Isras and Maulana Maududis and all of the classical Pakistani born and bred big names who actually tried to, whatever they could try to reconstruct the religious thought, didn't really work, did it? So where are we going wrong? Well, I'm just saying that we need to alter our strategy, and instead of going just political, we have to go domestic as well as political, and we have to be way more robust in our domestic strategy, talking to women, trying to raise their confidence so that they can actually have a lot more active domestic involvement in their religious thought process. Their to keep that spirituality intact, which of course they are, but let's just not limit the women as mothers to just their spiritual archetype. We have to politicize the very flavor through which women look at their role, and as soon as if we do that in parallel, our domestic robustness would increase. We need to be a lot more aggressive in the way we are raising our children, and we need to be a little more sacrificial in letting go of things which we are born to actually fascinate for. And it's not that hard. I'm telling you, it's not that hard. If anything, it's very easy for kids to be raised into Muslims than to convert the elderly into Muslims. Okay. It costs less money, takes less time, and it takes 12 years for a mother to raise a Muslim child. It takes more than 200 years, maybe even 4 or 5 generations to reestablish the whole religious thought in the older, um, you know, um, if we let these or any human being past that age of 20, 20, 25 without a proper well grounded uh, thought process and a very legit, validated framework of how to raise a child. Because if we miss out on those first 15 years, it takes more than 50 years to bring them back, way more than that. And I think anyone who's listening would know what I'm talking about. It's very easy to mold a child into a moment than to convert a ghair moment into a moment later on, girls and boys. So I think mothers actually play a way more vital role than any other uh, you know mm, person who has that kind of a handle. Now, is that is it that simple? No, it's not that simple, but it is that statistical. It is the only way that it can be done for a longer run. So what do? We establish a parallel 2 or 3 prong approach right off the bat. We don't just talk about the mothers with the mothers, about the mothers, for the mothers, or the children. No, not just that. We start with that, but in parallel, we need to understand that the political thought process of a 20-year-old has to be global, has to have a very well-established worldview, where he needs to know how to translate the Quran into the demands of the world right now. Once he can understand how to translate the Quran into the demands of the current world structure, the world view would be a lot more uh, useful, and he would have a deeper meaning of his own personal spiritual life as well. He would be a lot more, well, a lot happier than what he possibly can otherwise. But also, he would be way more effective to solve a a trifecta of the problems that we all face in our domestic, in our personal, and in our global citizenship. Uh, so it is that 2 or 3 prongs that we really need to establish as a group, as an individual. So I think Iqbal gave us that strategy. He himself was a living example of that strategy. He was very well aware of the philosophy of the European mainstream. So he knew how to translate what the global demands are. And he was a very well versed Muslim in the philosophy of the Quran. And he was politically, I think, the most active person, and probably the finest ever influencers in the way he did influence the youth. So I personally believe he was a way bigger influencer, way deeper influencer than Jinnah himself. So he was a lot more eloquent than Jinnah. He was a lot more knowledgeable than Jinnah about these 3 factors, which is very apparent and obvious. Obviously, he relied on Jinnah because of the fact that Jinnah had the quality which he himself knew. Iqbal knew that there was way more needed to drive the the car home. So it's pretty evident that leadership is to give leadership, to build leadership in the youth. That's true leadership. Leadership is not to put yourself on the stage and try and claim any sort of pedestal, any knowledge, even if you do have it. So I think there are so many lessons to learn from Iqbal, not just through his thought, but the way he actually acted upon that thought. And I wish a lot more Muslims, especially in their 20s, would know that these people had illustrious careers if they had chosen to, which they did at some time, and they had to 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 do a lot more than just chasing their own careers, and they actually gave into the bigger demands of Islam, and that's what true Muslim identity requires. Yes, sir. America. Let's just go to America. Toronto. Okay, Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh. I do not know your name, sir. Pittsburgh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
My name is Awais and my age is 26. Just want to ask you just the 3 questions, not more than that. One is sometime is in the Quran everything is like a metaphor, just like angels. You're doing good deed, you're doing ablution and all that, and your sins are pouring out. That's a one. The second thing is, I make dua that everybody once in a life have the dream of Qabr in their dreams. I had it. So afterward, I had a clear picture, we have to clear our identities. And I start with my family. They started Seerat-un-Nabi, then I started Seerat-un-Nabi. I want my relatives to start that too. And I try to do that, but I feel like they made fun and all that, and I feel blessed about it. But that's the one thing, what should be the strategy? The parents should be teaching their kids the Seerat-un-Nabi. How should we go with that? These are the 2 ones.
Well, Sira is something which you have to live into so that your relatives are going to, because no one's going to be lectured into a Sira. Okay. Even if you are going to lecture him into reading it, he's not going to sustain it for long enough. Okay. Don't make it like a task or a to-do list. Give him the benefit or her the benefit of what is going to do, or he or she's going to gain out of it. And unless you're gaining something out of it, they're not going to believe you, right? So unless you are actually living out some part of the Sira and they're benefiting from it, from you, and then you tell them where you're learning it from, they're not going to jump into it or let their own kids jump into it. No one in the world who's a Muslim would want himself or herself to be away from the Sira. There's a gap between us and the Sira because of a few psychological reasons. And one of them is the man who's representing the Sira, okay, primarily. And that's the guy who's holding the book and trying to lecture people on Sira, even though he's not himself not the most attractive example of the Sira. That's why most people don't go into Sira. Sira is just like the Quran for us. Why do you think we don't go into the Quran? Because the guy between me and the Quran is not representing the Quran. I'm not saying any particular guy. I'm just, this is a metaphor of using, right? I mean, it's not a metaphor, it's an analogy. So, well, it's not it's literally the case. So the fact that, the word Molvi has become a taboo for the regular Muslim, it's one of the biggest loss that we can actually possibly go through. I think it is the biggest loss, that the man who's supposed to represent the experience and the flavor of the effect of the Quran and the Sira is the guy who's actually, turned out to be the most repulsive example of how not to practice the Quran or the Sira. And the guy is doing it with great intent. I mean, this guy is not bad intended. He's well intended. And he's not aware of the fact that the language that the audience is speaking, or the fascination, the curve where the audience is drawing that fascination, he's far from it. And you just had to ask the right questions about how are you drawing the curve of your own fascination? Who are you looking up to? What kind of definitions of a hero do you have? Forget who is the hero. What is a hero in front of you? And he would have really picked up really easily because he's mature enough because of whatever he's gone through. If he has gone through the Sira, he would know how to actually translate the Sira into the fascination of the audience. And so that definition changes from decade to decade in the life cycle of every human being. But generally speaking, you can have very common parameters depending on the demographic that you're picking out the sample from. So for example, an 8-year-old to 18-year-old has no similar, well, they have both of these, 8-year-old and the 18-year-old they have two different sets of parameters through which they define the heroes. I mean, I don't find those people heroes who I used to when I was 8. How did I mature into different parameters? Well, I rationalized a lot of parameters, rationalized myself out of them. And but the fascination still remains. I mean, the base archetype still remains. Whoever was my hero when I was a little boy was a character from the cartoons, right? Or He-Man, or the Lion from the Thundercats. I remember that. So why was I fascinating this or imitating this character? Because it represented a few attributes which which are innately a desire of mine as a boy. Same goes for the girl. So those attributes need to be, on paper or in front of me when I'm actually describing the Seerah to my kids, right? I mean, I know how old they are. But even if I did change my heroes, I don't look up to Lionel now or the He-Man now, because I've grown out of that mental zone, but my emotional zone is still there. Whoever I'm going to pick out as a hero now in the world will have the same attributes, if not the same, then more than what Lionel had or He-Man had, right? And I'm just using a few characters. Obviously, we look into different stories, we listen to different stories, read different books as kids, and we look and pick out on those attributes. And how do you know that these are the attributes that or these kids or any kid is going to like? Because that attribute is going to develop or help that character defeat that villain in that story. So it's not just the attribute but what the attribute is going to do. That's basic psychology, I'm trying to tell you. So these are a few like basic things to pick up. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what I'm talking about or do what I'm trying to tell you guys to do. You know what I'm saying? So Seerah should have been translated by, and you have to do that at 26, by people who know that these are core definitions of the demands of any and every human being. These are going to manifest into different, more mature archetypes later on. Let's just say a 20-year-old is going to think himself into, that's his requirement of a self-esteem, to think himself into a different ideal, but those attributes are going to be the same. Key attributes are going to be the same. Obviously, he's going to have more attributes in that bigger set that he's going to carry now. So kids don't think of their heroes as good looking, ironically, but boys do, or men do. This is so weird. This is so beautiful. This is such a beautiful concept. So where are they getting the looks, the attribute of good looking from? They are picking it up from the culture. So you need to see how the transition is done through the life cycle of a human being. So once you know that, and these are no rocket science, right? So once you know the list of attributes and the way these attributes mature or how new attributes come into play, you can put the Seerah right in there. And that's how Seerah is done. That's how training is done on Seerah. You really need to know the attributes. You can't just start telling the story of when the Prophet was born and then that's what happened, and then this happened, and in the next year this happened. No, talk about the attributes and talk about where he is using these attributes to defeat what kind of villain and what kind of attributes did the villain have, because the villain cannot be a weak entity. You have to make the villain strong. So describe Abu Jahl or Abu Umayyah bin Khalaf the way they're supposed to be described. Describe Utbah as the way he was. Otherwise, these people were not just average Joes. They were some serious people, and they had some serious power. They could have done some serious damage. They tried to do some serious damage. So they were actual villains. They are villains of our story. We do not need Peter Pans or Cinderellas. We actually have that story. We have to know what Peter Pan does to a child. It's basic psychological phenomena. This is instilled inside us. So once you're actually describing the Seerah, trying to make people fall in love with the Seerah, you really need to play this simple game of psychology. I'm telling you, this is nothing more to it. It's all what I've just told you is all there is to it. So let's just not make a rocket science out of it, and let's just try not overwhelm our own selves and put yourself into or ourselves into a fatigue and tire ourselves out of this whole process of teaching other people the seerah of our own Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So this is how training is done. And even if you have to spend a year describing, literally, even if you have to spend a year describing or building that attribute, do it. Even if it takes more, do it. Take your time. Don't compromise in describing the whole feel of that attribute in which you're going to try and put, even in the villain of the story, so that you can actually get the control on the psychology of the audience, no matter how old or young he is. Of course, I just told you, in different bands of age, these attributes manifest themselves, or are penetrated at a different depth. So you need to see who you're talking to. So I hope you get a deeper view of how to look at seerah, inshallah. Your first question about the metaphor. There are some metaphors, because those things cannot be seen by a regular human being in the visible universe, especially in this planet. So Allah Azza wa Jal uses a certain metaphor, and He tells us that, since you do not know, so I'm going to give you an analogy or an example through this planet. Otherwise, whatever you're going to see later on after you die, in all of the stages after the death, inside the grave, or on the day of judgment, during the day of judgment, inside Jannah or inside Jahannam, you cannot see that. You cannot fathom the reality of the way these things are constructed, because I put you in a certain cage. So you cannot just see. So I'm going to give you examples. So He did, and He does. Otherwise, most of what the Quran is saying is literal. Whenever it talks about certain things and certain aspects, it's very literal. It had to be literal. You cannot just use metaphors for about whatever they're going to go through, or what they are going through, or what they're supposed to do. Metaphors are used for various reasons. This is primary. Secondary would be that, something which is of a larger nature than what you are living your life into. You need to come out of it and develop yourself in a way bigger or better position, through which you're going to not only establish the truth or achieve your purpose or goal, but also to understand the demand of what Islam is. It's not just for one man. So as soon as this topic is addressed, Allah Azza wa Jal starts to use those sort of similes or metaphors, through which He can compound the meaning into simple words, and that too cannot be called just a metaphor, just like that. It is literal, but people are not at that level at that time. So you're gonna hear this word mutashabihat in a lot of books and lectures. Those are examples of this, and also mushtabihat are also examples of this, where He Azza wa Jal uses the similes, because those things don't exist. Like the fruit of Jannah doesn't exist here, but Allah Azza wa Jal gives the example of the fruit here. These are similes that Allah Azza wa Jal uses. And then there's so many examples in the Quran where we do not see the way those certain processes and phenomena are happening in the universe. Allah Azza wa Jal is literally giving us examples for us to know of what it would be like. So He uses things from our own encyclopedia, which we can or have developed, and at times which we had not even developed at that time. So He gave an example. But what happens here is that now, after 1400 years, we have actually developed a far superior encyclopedia now, because of whatever we've invented and the way we've actually achieved whatever we achieved. Now, whatever examples that could not have literally been given at that time are now literally visible to us, and they are a permanent part of a very validated encyclopedia. So when خَلَقَ الْإِنسَانَ مِنْ عَلَقٍ was the ayah used at that time, Arabs did not know what alaq would literally mean in that ayah. And it could have been used as a metaphor for a regular person, not the sahabas. But now we know that the alaq actually is an alaq inside the womb of the mother, literally an alaq. It not only looks but acts like an alaq, and it's not a metaphor anymore. So that's why when I was being taught, I was taught as a literalist, and I was told to be a literalist because of the very fact that even if some things seem like a metaphor now, they can be used as a metaphor and will suffice for the meaning of that word, but are not just metaphors, are literal words which will yield their meaning with time when some certain prosperity of knowledge is going to come at us, or we're going to come across it through mere discovery, if not invention. So I hope this is going to be enough for you to understand. Otherwise, I can go on, because this is the Quran we're talking about. We can talk for a year and still not be done about the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has constructed the words inside the Quran. Good question, though. Very good question. Toronto, please. Toronto.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
How are you? How are you, my brother?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Nice. Good to hear. Firstly, I just wanted to thank you for all the work you're doing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because I'm definitely benefiting off of it, and I'm trying my very hardest to strive and increase my intellectuality. And that was my question, actually. I'm 19 years old, so how can a youth, someone at my age, how can he strengthen his intellectual mind to use it as the gun? Because a lot of the time we're using anger and emotions. How can we use hikmah instead, as a building block?
You're 19?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, well, the only way to actually go through that is exposure. And exposure at your age should primarily come through books. Okay. And you need to centralize the Quran and the literature at which the classical scholars were trying to comprehend the universe. And once you've centralized that, which means, centralized means the reference point should be the Quran. So whatever book you're going to read, you're going to actually, first of all, pick up because of the Quran, or for the Quran, or about the Quran, or literally against the Quran. You know what I'm saying? Because the reference point is the Quran. So once you get that, you'll go through all of them. Go 360 degrees around it for foes and friends. You know what I'm saying? Whoever is writing, whatever is writing. So once you're going to spiraling upwards, you'll find out, you're going to find awesome literature, which is awesome for you, but not apparently awesome because it was written against the Quran. You know what I'm saying? But
no, I definitely see the benefit there, because if you read something against the Quran, you can refute the arguments from their perspective.
Not just
understand
for the sake of refuting it, but for the sake of understanding how the human mind works, right? Because we're not trying to create or identify enemies. We're trying to create friends here. So you can actually try and understand how the poor man, fell prey to a certain psychological obstacle, right? And not just him, but anyone who is going to go through that, you'll actually be able to help them. You're nursing people through learning how people think. And that's what the objective of intellectualism is, to help people. It's not just to impress people, right? So you need to go through books. Iqra. That's all I'm going to say. Iqra.
I hear you loud and clear. Loud and clear. Yep. Thank you so much.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for such a simply put question. Okay, I'll just go try and change a country here, or the continent. Stuck in North America I am right now. Let me just go through. Okay, my Poland. Let's go to Poland and Switzerland after that. Gee, yes, Poland. I did not know your name. Yasser, Poland.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum salam.
Okay, sir, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How are you? كيف حالك?
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, sir, I want to know about the real reason which caused Arabs like when we see the sahabas and we read the sahabas stories and like their biographies, they were so determined, and they were they were sacrificing everything for the sake of religion. And when we see now to the Arabs or any Muslims like Ummah, they are like less courageous. What's the reason? And when we talk to the ulmas and every imams and every kind of teachers of Islamic, they are not going for the nizam and the Sharia law, which you are talking about. How come they are so less courageous? Where we have went wrong about this?
You mean the people of knowledge or anybody?
Like,
who are you talking about?
Like I'm saying, like when we see the Sahabas, they are very courageous people, and they have done the things we couldn't even imagine now, that they have sacrificed their families, and they have done like
No, we
like
can't
they have-
imagine that. No, I'll fix that perspective for you. We can see all of those examples, so not literally for the sake of Allah, but we can see the examples of the way people have sacrificed of whatever they believe in all the cultures now, right now. You go to certain problems, let's just say Europe, let's just say under Stalin, you will see what was going on. You will see South America, many case studies. People have at a mass level started making movements. You will see South Africa, you know what I'm saying? Persecution, but they're persistent. You'll see Palestine right now. Of course, Palestine does not have that reminiscence of what we want them, those poor people, to have, because they have literally been, that's like a blockade. They can't even move an inch. But even if you see, I'll give you a lot of examples through which you can see that at individual, smaller groups, and even big groups, mass level, movements have been done because of whatever they believed in, and they sacrificed whatever they could. Not just Muslim, non-Muslims. The fact that I see the problem in a totally different way. I see it that we have been given a placebo by the Muslims, elderlies, doesn't matter the Molvi or not, or scholars or not, no. Elderlies, because of whatever belief, the corruption of the belief that we have, that, it's okay, whatever's going on. At some level, it's okay. Things could have been worse. Things could be worse. And as soon as this sort of psychology comes into play, you kill any kind of activism inside your people. Things could be worse. Silver lining, look at the silver lining. Or how do we draw the thresholds of compromise? And that's where the problem is. And now, you know what? The problem is gone out of bounds, because now we are actually being told, literally, these very words, that this is precedented time and we are not supposed to do anything about or against it. That is also what Islam demands us to do. Even these statements are flying around masjids and universities. So there will be no activism. So it's not America or Israel. No, it's not the non-Muslim. It's not the Jews. It's not Shaitan. It's the Muslims who are actually suppressing the Muslim movement.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's not about how to revive a Sahabi. A lot of people have revived the Sahabas. Literally. Some for Allah Azza wa Jal, some not for Allah Azza wa Jal. Some for their communist belief, or some for their, socialist belief, some for their country, some for their family, some for their club, any kind of club, in Venezuela, in Nicaragua, in in so many places which were not even war torn. You know what I'm saying? People have
Yep.
given their whole lives and their families with a smile on their face of whatever, because of whatever they believe in. We're also going to do whatever we believe in. The fact that we don't believe in what the way sahabas believed in Islam is the problem. So the problem is not that we don't have the courage or the ability or the talent or the skill. No, that's anybody has that. People have proven that. What we actually lack is, we don't lack anything. We have something extra, and that extra is inside the belief system that, Islam is also a name of compromise. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I have never seen a better manifestation of turn the other cheek philosophy of St. Paul by Muslims today. Literally, the Muslim scholarship is turning the other cheek way better than what St. Paul wanted the world to do in the Bible. You know what I'm saying? We're living the First Corinthian. We are the best examples of the First Corinthian, not the Quran. You know what I'm saying? So somebody gave us this. I don't know where it came from. I mean,
That's
we can
my question.
backtrack. It's not.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, but that's the question, that how can I can build up my courage to become like sahabas. Like, how can we do this?
That's what I keep telling, that you need to be a lot more sacrificial. And if you're old enough to know what you are what we're talking about, then you have to have that courage to start with your own self. I'm talking about giving up that car. I'm talking about that fascination that you need to, because that takes a lot more of your brain time, right? And then jump into the right kind of books to equip yourself. That's job one. And that's not the only job. That's just job one of 100, right? And the next step will be harder, tougher, a lot more sweat. It'll demand a lot more effort and sweat. And 2-3 steps later, you will see that the demand list is going from sweat to blood. You know what I'm saying? And later on, blood of your own people, your own kids. It might just require that. How come it was so easy for Nelson Mandela? How come? Well, think about what his wife was going through, Mandela's wife. Do you remember? Have you read about these two people? They're not Muslims. They don't read the Abu Bakr and Umar ibn Khattab story. Where are they getting their energy from? Nelson Mandela. Think about it. I'm just talking about just one guy here. I can give you a lot of examples from India as well. You know what I'm saying? Because of the kind of hostility India has. And non-Muslims are trying to do whatever not right now. I'm just talking about our own history. I've read a few case studies. And under the Chinese regime, you'll be like, what are we talking? How are they getting the courage to do whatever they are doing, sacrificing their own careers and worlds? And why are they doing it? As a Muslim, like, why are they doing it? What are they getting out of it? They don't even believe that they're going to be raised in an honorable being for whatever they're doing right now. They don't even believe in the day of judgment. Still, they're doing it. Without even the belief in the day of judgment, they still are practicing those attributes of courage and resilience, perseverance, consistency, and clarity of thought. Imagine that. Whatever they call belief. Well, we call that belief too, but whatever they believe in, they're doing it for that very belief. We have that edge. We believe that, this is not even the end. It's just step one of many. Next step, grave. Next step, day of judgment. Next step, heaven. You know what I'm saying? We have this is the first of many steps that we're taking. We have that edge. It should have made a lot more positive for us, a lot less depressing for us, a lot more energetic for a Muslim, for us to do whatever these people are doing without even the belief in the day of judgment. That's the only life they have. These non-Muslims, that's the only one life they have. Look at the fragility of their belief, and still they sacrifice whatever they can because of whatever they believe in is right. Just one life. Can you believe that? And Muslims, we know that this is not our first life, right? It's not our last life, sorry. We know it's not our first life, but it's not our last life. We're going to be raised right inside the grave, way better than this. Then we're going to be raised in the day of judgment, way better than the grave life. The life continues. Still, we can't sacrifice whatever we can. I'm not even asking for the sacrifice of your life. I'm talking about things inside the life of a man or a woman. So it's the way we're taught, and the way we're given those, parameters of how to live life upon, and the criticality of that parameter. And that's it. That's how it is. And you're going to have to train yourself into it if your parents didn't do it for you. And not just that, but to reset the very belief system of your own or our own parents as well. That's harder than resetting anybody else's belief system. Because the last person they want to take lectures from is their own people, their own kids, right? So yeah, it is how it is. That's how it is. Okay, so it's rather simple. It's tough. I swear to God, it's tough. But it's simple. It's not complicated. Again, it's tough, but it's not complicated. Very difficult. It's not complicated. The only thing that we can do is to complicate it, and no one's going to do anything about it, okay? Because then they'll have an excuse. I didn't really get it. I'm still at bay as to what I'm actually supposed to do. I mean, everybody knows what he's supposed to do. He just is going to justify the lack of effort because of the fact that he was not explained all of this simply enough. Okay. Let me just talk to a girl, please. I just am speaking to boys, but I'm not speaking to boys or girls. I'm speaking to countries right now. I just forgot. Let me just go to a country now. Okay, let's go to Sweden.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sahil bhai, I just wanted to ask a simple question that is quite simple, but it's maybe complicated in the nature. As a layman, we are living in Europe since 15 years or 18 years. So how, as a layman, how we can contribute and how we can change the identity while living in that environment? I mean,
change what?
How we can change ourselves, the identity that you're talking about most of the time. That
well, good question. It's a simple question.
Yes, simple
something
question.
That are you done with that? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, as a layman, because for me to start from somewhere, from my home, from my family, or from somewhere, from reading some books or doing something that can help me to come out of this fiasco thinking that we have got inherited from our parents, maybe, or the mullahs or the Maulvi Sahab or whatever. So we are actually stuck in that, and we don't find the way out, that how we can improve, how we can change our identity to the destination that is actual destination in some way. Thank you.
Well, good question. There are some things that Scandinavia is going to offer you, which Pakistan, India is not. Okay, and that's the exposure towards how to look into the very concept of knowledge, the philosophy of knowledge, the epistemology of things. You don't get it here in Desistan. So use it to your advantage. Now, the only problem that Muslims in Europe and America are going to go through, which primarily are those people who are immigrants themselves, not their kids, but themselves. So I was not an immigrant myself. My father was. So, I couldn't really understand the real problem that my father was suffering from until I grew into it. I became old enough to know different cultures, Pakistan and North America. And it became very evident that, my father was going through a lot more problems of his own identity than I am, or I am ever going to be going through. Because he had to accept both at the same time, live in America. He died in America. And I remember last days, I'm literally the last day, my father was like, "Mujhe Lahore mein dafnana hai, mujhe Lahore mein dafnana hai. I need to be buried in Lahore." It was 9/11 going on. We couldn't get live people out of America at that time. So we tried our best, we couldn't. So, of course, you cannot just wait for 3 months. So, and we did get a flight after 3 months. You know, this was the kind of problem we were going through. Literally, November 5th, he died. You know what I'm saying? Right after September 11th, November 5th, he died. So we were stuck. We were in Chicago Hope. We were in Chicago, and we didn't know what to do. So we had to bury him there in a Muslim graveyard. But that's all he was telling me, you know. And nobody wants to talk about this with your own father, because we were motivating that he's not going to die, right? I'm just saying he was going through that transit, that, you know, this is not my place. I'm a Muslim. I go, mujhe Lahore leke jao, Lahore, mujhe make sure I want to be in Lahore. And sometimes Pakistan, sometimes Lahore, you know, he was. And I was what, 20? I was 19, 20. And I was thinking, why is this a problem for him? Why is not dying a problem for him? Why is being buried in America a problem for him? You know, this was a very big, opening of how to look at identity, or a crisis of identity, you know, the depression of a person whose identity is the suffocation, the stifling of a man who's not in his own place. He thinks of himself as an alien. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's not even worried about dying. He's worried about being buried. Imagine the pressure on us three brothers at that time, because we knew that's not what our father wanted. He wanted to be buried in Lahore. And we're burying him in, what, Chicago, literally? And no one's talking about it. You know, nobody talks about this, but we're all thinking it. And we're just thinking, ki kya kare ab? Like, what am I supposed to do? It's like, you know, being disappointed that if my father knew, he'll be literally disappointed. Ye kya kiya tumne logon ne mere sath? Ye maine bete pale. Ye kaam nahi kar sakte. I mean, we couldn't. You have no idea. You know, for the 3 days, we didn't bury him for 3 days. You know, because the funeral thing was going on. The third day morning, actually, we buried him in Chicago. And flight check kar rahe hain, we were checking up everything. Koi cheez mil jaye. No, nothing's going to go out of America, buddy. Nothing. Especially a coffin. Live people are not going to go out. You're sending a coffin out? No, it's not going to happen. So it's a realization that I know that Muslims inside non-Muslim cultures go through that transit. Okay, what is that transit? The transit is simple. That we are culturally defined into a certain set of rules, that I am this man who does certain things, and that's exactly what defines me as a man. Somehow we start attributing that to Islam, because that culture has a lot of Islam in there, but it's not Islam. No culture is Islam. You know what I'm saying? Being buried anywhere. It is Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas is buried in China. You know what I'm saying? Or his mamu. I keep forgetting. Or both. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's the worst place to be buried into. I mean, there is literally no Islam at the time, and sahabas are moving out, right? So it doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is, no, it doesn't matter where you're living. What matters is how you're defining the very core of you, who you are. And unless you are successful in that, doesn't really matter how rich or poor you're going to die or live. You're going to echo that depression into your kids. Most parents are doing that in America, and everybody knows. Every kid knows about this. Somehow, their father is always pissed off at them. No matter what I'm going to do, my daddy's going to be like, you know what? I have to, Pakistan wapas jana hai. Pakistan wapas jana hai. It's like, because of me, just the way you look at me, oh yeah, kyunki baal katwa ke aaye. You know, I just got a haircut, Pakistan wapas jana hai. I wore a new pair of jeans, Pakistan wapas jana hai. His identity is being, crushed. And all of a sudden, he's attributing Islam into it. And that's where my problem is with the culture. You know what? Every बड़ों के लिए खड़ा होना है, वो culture है. तो Islam तो ना डाले इसमें. This is absolutely absurd, and we need to grow out of this and it'll relax the hell out of us. I swear to you. I tried it on myself. It relaxes you because Islam gives you the actual liberty and freedom to spread all of your wings and relax any and everything that you're doing. Well, most of what you're doing is not even attributed as an identity of any human being, let alone a Muslim. A Muslim is not what he wears or the way or where he was born. As Mu'adh bin Jabal, and even he's being sent to Yemen, he knew Prophet ﷺ is sending him. He's walking with Mu'adh bin Jabal. Prophet ﷺ is sending him to Yemen. And Prophet ﷺ is telling him, not in his very words, because it's not Muslim to tell when anyone's going to die. But Mu'adh bin Jabal is crying, Prophet ﷺ is crying. Both of them knew that this is the last time they're meeting. And Mu'adh bin Jabal is like, I don't want to go because he knew this is the last time I'm seeing the Prophet ﷺ. And he, ﷺ, is the one who's sending me to Yemen. I mean, this is the last time. And see what the Prophet ﷺ tells him, Imagine kis level pe, how he's actually helping us understand that even if you're in Stockholm or even if you're in Madagascar, even if you're in Auckland or you're in Makkah, it doesn't really matter. Your identity is not dependent on where you are and where you're going to live or where you're going to die. It matters on the key attributes that you're going to live your life upon, rather than where you're going to practice them. And he literally, Sallallahu literally tells it to Mu'adh bin Jabal that it doesn't matter whether you're far from me or you're close. And Mu'adh bin Jabal is holding his hand. Don't let go of my hand. And Prophet ﷺ is also not letting go of his hand. Both of them are like aware that this is the last time he's holding the Prophet ﷺ's hand. And Prophet ﷺ is keep telling him that it doesn't matter, Mu'adh, where you're going or where you're going to live or how far you are. As long as you are nearer to Islam, you're with me. That's what I'm going to tell to all overseas Muslims. That when we understand that, what? My father was keep telling me, Lahore mein maine dafan hona hai. Lahore mujhe leke jana hai. And I'm like, this is a big deal of where we're born and where we're raised and the kind of, flavor of the air that I was, raised into in Karachi or, wherever, or Delhi or Dhaka or wherever, we think this is our identity. And these old folks have just written books and charters on this, that this is your identity. This man, Mu'adh bin Jabal, radiallahu anhu, you know what his kunya, his laqab was? You know what people used to call Mu'adh bin Jabal? Imagine look it up. I'm not going to tell you. Look it up and you'll find out that this is what the Arabs used to call Mu'adh bin Jabal. This is the rank of Mu'adh bin Jabal, in the eyes of the Prophet. And he's the one who's sent away from the Prophet. Feel this whole story I'm telling you. People in Sweden and Finland, feel it in Norway and Denmark, feel it in Canada and Irvine. That's the farthest I can think of. After that, it's the Pacific, right? Feel it in Japan. You're the farthest. Feel it in Auckland and in Chile. You need to see, and I know our family in Alaska right now. I mean, I literally grew up with them. Feel it in Anchorage. You're the farthest, and you could still be the best case study for Muslim identity. You can still be. This is the story of Mu'adh bin Jabal. You can be the best case study, best example of what Muslim identity is. If you know means knowledge, and you have attributes, and you have the practice, the activism of what a Muslim is supposed to do wherever he is. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going to continue the story of Mu'adh bin Jabal because that's going to tangent things out. Because he's the one who came out and he says, I'm not going to report to Abu Bakr Siddiq. And Abu Bakr Siddiq said, why you not report to me? He said, because I report to Allah alone. And Abu Bakr Siddiq says, I report to the same God, man. He's the one who made me in charge of you. So you're going to report to me? And I said, no. If you don't believe that I report to Allah Azza wa Jal, then I'm not the right man for the job. And if you believe that I report to Allah Azza wa Jal, then you're not supposed to ask for any reports from me. I mean, look at the concepts of this man. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. I mean, it's like, I'm not going to go into details, totally different set of psychology, that the angle of psychology that we'll cover some other day, inshallah. What I'm saying that Sweden has to offer a lot of things in terms of your knowledge, your aperture, your exposure, which you'll see. I mean, you can read the Muslim thought from outside so clearly. You can see the kind of errors they're making. You can only see that when you're outside the picture, right? Because when you're inside the picture, you get involved with this. You get biased about this, inside it and on it. You're biased within the sphere, about the sphere, because of the sphere. But when you come out of the sphere, you can see the whole sphere. Muslims in Pakistan or India can't even scope themselves, scale themselves of what kind of problem they're suffering, because they're inside the problem. Sometimes they are the problem. But once you come outside the problem, you can see, from all angles what the problem is, and then you can relate to it. And that's what European philosophy can help you with. You don't have to adhere to it. You just have to learn it, so that in retrospect, you can see, you know what, same kind of problems have happened to Muslims. And I'm telling you this right now, the same case study, with the Pope and what the Vatican was, well, not now, but the church was doing in Europe before Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King, the original Martin Luther King in Europe, what was he crying about? He was crying about his own Maulvis. What the hell are you guys up to? Why are you trying to do this? Because of the book? This is not what the book is saying. I'm not saying, this is what we should do. What I'm saying is, we can see that story and what happened, and see that this might just happen to Muslims as well. Because you can only see it once you're outside the problem, and you'll find out that, I'll give you an example. In Toronto, I was sitting with, and I spent a lot of time with the Maliki school of thought and the teachers and students. And I'm really fascinated by them. The kind of arguments that Maliki school gives, I still do not know the answers to those arguments. And in my alone time, I'll tell you a secret. I am a Maliki when I'm alone. Because I can't convince myself out of the lack of my capacity to answer the arguments of Imam Malik and their students. They have a way stronger argument of the way life is supposed to be lived than the Hanabala that taught me, or the Shafi'is that taught me. And I am way more pro Hanabala, but since there's not much of a difference, so I just keep shifting. But once I started reading the Malikis, then I was like, oh my God, now I understand the value or the lack of value in the Shafi'in teachers or the Hanabalas. I had to go outside the problem to see, or outside the sphere, to see the sphere, the good and the bad that the sphere had to offer. The Malikis had that gift to give me. And once I came to Pakistan, I did not know any Hanafi. Well, I knew a lot of Pakistanis. They didn't even know they were Hanafis. I knew that they were Hanafis, but they were not teaching Hanafiya. So when I came into Pakistan, I was like, it's a conundrum, right? Because I know what the Malikis is saying. I'm still suffering from the lack of the ability to answer the arguments of the Malikiyas. And all of a sudden, I'm in the Hanafiyas, and I'm like, you don't even know, my problems. You have to know my problems to solve my problems. Now, that's an identity crisis. So, but I'm just giving an example here. So in Sweden, that there's so much your kids can gain because of the fact that there's so many Arabian immigrants inside Sweden. You can get that exposure for your kids and yourselves. Learn. You can read the Quran in a different angle, which you can never, ever do in Pakistan. Literally never. I mean, I have tried for years and years, couldn't find that angle of the Quran, which the Arabians teach to their kids, literally. You don't have to be a scholar to know what I'm talking about. And in Sweden, you can do that. You know what I'm saying? And not just the Quran and the Seerah and Hadith, but imagine, I'll give you a case study. In Pakistan, there is no book. You'll literally have to find or order it from the outside of Shamail. The Shamail of the Prophet. You cannot, there is no concept. And everywhere else in the world, every child knows about this. They don't have to be a Muslim world country. And once you are outside, or let's just say Sweden. Sweden is actually mainstream. Sweden is big, right, in terms of its exposure. So you can actually get a lot more access to knowledge of all kinds. So you have an edge. And that's what I'm saying, Muslim identity through the story of Mu'adh bin Jabal. I'm telling you, you might just be the best thing. This immigration, this diaspora of the Muslims might just be the best thing if you can harness it properly for the Muslim identity inside the Muslim land. Pakistan is, by the way, you know, has a lot more exposure than other countries like Indonesia or even as African countries which are Muslims. Pakistan is very well exposed because of the fact that we were directly the slaves of Victoria, right? So we have a lot more exposure to English, and we can actually translate a lot of things or understand a lot of things which the African Muslims can't or other countries can't. So we are a lot more, out there. So still, I know that the handicap that a Muslim in Pakistan has, and a Swedish or Finnish or a Scandinavian Muslim child has a little bit of an edge. English child has a lot more to get or gain if he's trained into it, right? But if he start getting depressed, oh my God, I'm not a Muslim anymore because I'm in England, or my identity is only to be practiced in Islamabad, and then you don't even know what that identity is. Okay, you could have had the best Muslim identity because of the kind of tools England has to offer, Sweden, Scandinavia has to offer for that age in your child's life. And if he had received that, if he had that perspective, he's going to gain all of it. If he doesn't have that perspective, he's not going to gain any of it, even if it's going to be right there in front of him. And that's what I keep telling the overseas, especially the English countries, that you guys are in a lot better position as parents. You have both, the best of both the worlds. Utilize it. If you're not going to utilize it, then you have the worst possible case study, because worst case scenario, because then your child is going to be in the middle of the biggest problem the planet has to offer, which is the corruption of philosophy, which is coming directly from the West. I'm telling you this right now. I'm not about this, I'm not biased against or for anybody, but the way they're actually trying to advance the left wing is inevitably, with its own great intent, even if I give it the benefit of the doubt, the way they're actually trying to pollute the philosophy of the way life is supposed to be looked at, it is such an amazing glimmer, and it is so appealing to a postmodernistic mind, but it has absolute, it is the exact opposite of what Islam is. I mean, they're literally hunting down the values and the concepts of the Quran, hunting them down. And I am not going to be a fool, say, you know what, Lord, they're good people, they just don't know any better. No, are you kidding me? One after the other. It's like somebody opened the Quran or the Bible and said, you know what, I'm going to do chapter 1 in 2020. We're going to hit Genesis in 2020, and then we're going to move to Ezekiel 2024. That's how they're actually planning it. I'm not saying they're against the Quran. I'm just saying their philosophy that church represents, all of a sudden, because, the Bible Belt is not the most favorite part of America for most of the Americans, right? So they're trying to do whatever they can. And in turn, of course, those kind of values are punctured and flattened for our Muslim kids as well. And that's why most Muslim parents who are first-generation immigrants are frustrated out of their skin, because they move right into the heart of this movement that the West is going through. And it's not America. I'm telling you, America is 2 steps behind. Canada is way ahead of this game. The way they're progressing into this, new psychology of how to redefine the word values and the word rights and the word good in general. Somehow, I don't know who's training Trudeau, but my God, I have never seen a faster movement away from Islam than what Justin Trudeau is somehow, up to, because of the way he's actually shooting down the core of what Bible represents, or the Quran represents. So I'm just giving you both sides of the picture in detail, so that you understand how I look at things and how your kids are going to be affected, in my opinion. And I have not lived in England, but once you see the whole spectrum of what England has to offer, you got to know that it's not, I'm just giving you the good side through understanding what good West has to offer. But you need to understand, if it's not the best case scenario, then the worst case scenario is literally the worst case scenario. Then you'll be literally envying Muslims who are literally, in current definitions, very backward, and they're stuck in some kind of a well. They're never going to come out of it. You'll be envying their kids because they won't have that kind of problems our kids are going to have in the West, because the West, the other side of the West, is literally as evil as it gets. Okay, so I understand. I hope I have gone enough in detail. We're just going to take one more question from any country other than the one that I've covered. Trying to go as scattered as possible. Switzerland. Let's talk to Switzerland.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, sir.
All boys today. Alhamdulillah. Okay, go on.
My question, you basically answer it to the last brother. So it was also about the concept of hijrah. How should the Muslims see the concept of hijrah? What should be our personal hijrah? And I also personally think that it is a great time to be alive in the West as a Muslim. We have a lot of opportunities. So I don't have a question because you basically answered to the last brother. It was about the hijrah concept.
Well, the Prophet said that unless you are suffering from three things, you're not supposed to. And he literally said it in these very critical parameters. That unless your life is in danger, or actually, when it came down to migrating to a non-Muslim land, he said, if you became a part of the economy of the non-Muslim land, unless your life was in danger, I'm not going to be accountable for anything you're going to do there on the day of judgment. He didn't say falaysa minha, but he said, I'm not going to be accountable for anything that you're going to do there, unless your life was in danger. Okay. So, or your reputation, literally, like you really need to know how critical this is. And this is not the time when Muslims were in the times of war and, whatever was going on, whatever is going on. So you need to know how critical this could be. This could be really critical. So I'm just saying, you asked me a question about your personal decision, anybody's personal decision, then yeah. So what do we do? Well, it's if it's a temporary visit or study tour, or a tour where you're supposed to have a limit when you're supposed to come back, or whatever reason, okay, could be 10 years for studies, or chasing a career which you're going to come back for and practice it for Muslims, then yeah, well, there has been a very well detailed literature produced in just about every era. However, when the Prophet spoke about Darul Kufr and Darul Islam, there was actual Darul Islam in the world. Okay, now we can't attribute that definition of Darul Islam to just about any land that we have right now. So argument has been made, and I've heard and read about those. I read those arguments that this hadith cannot be implemented right now, because what kind of Muslim land are you living in where you can say that I'm going to come back to this Muslim land? There is no such thing right now. You know what I'm saying? So it's the 3 degrees: Darul Kufr, Darul Islam, and Darul Nifaq. That's how the scholars define it. These are the 3 layers. And Darul Kufr is over Darul Nifaq. And then there's Darul Islam, right? Darul Kufr, Darul Islam, Darul Kufr, Darul Nifaq. Now, Darul Nifaq has to be a Muslim land. You know what I'm saying? So if you have to choose between Darul Nifaq and Darul Kufr, you'd have to choose Darul Kufr. That's a simple math. So whenever somebody says, yeah, you know what? If you live and die in America or Canada, and that's going to be a problem. You have to come back to Pakistan. Pakistan doesn't fit the bill here. Okay, I'm just saying Pakistan doesn't fit the bill here, let alone India or I don't know what country would they actually be referring to. So because we know the definitions of Dar Islam, most countries don't even live up to those principles. That's why I keep telling Muslims in Pakistan that you to revisit the constitution so that we can at least claim it. We can't even claim it here on paper. We can't even claim it. Okay. So just because you see the masjid and hear the azans doesn't make any land Darul Islam. Now, I'm not just talking about my opinion. I'm talking about the general consensus of the scholars that do write about this very clearly with good arguments. Now, any layman will be like, yeah, you know what, Pakistan is Darul Islam, and I want to migrate to, and a lot of people are saying that I want to come back from, Canada or America or Australia because I want to go to Darul Islam. And I'm like, where are you going? Yeah, you should go to Darul Islam, but where are you buying a ticket to? I'm like, we're going to buy a ticket to Lahore. Like, yeah, okay. Yeah, get your concept straight because you cannot confuse your own self because this is not going to help. Your kids are going to go through same or literally maybe even bigger problem in Lahore than they were going through in Sydney. You know what I'm saying? Why are you just thinking that Darul Islam is where the rule of Allah is as is implemented, as the Prophet implied, right? And there's not much margin for evil when it comes to social exposure in education or in workplaces or in general social life. That's what Darul Islam basically covers, so that people are helped by the system to be intact, to be closer to Islam. In Pakistan, are you kidding me? You go outside the house, you're way more in danger in Lahore than you are in most of Finland. Most of Finland. So you can't just, blindfold yourself and like, you know what? I want to hear the azan of Fajr in 4 in the morning, and I'm going to be thinking it's Darul Islam. That's not how Darul Islam is defined. Okay. So I wouldn't be amazed if there's no more azan in Pakistan. I won't be amazed. I mean, I'd be fighting for it, and I'm fighting against this very person who's going to do it, and I'm going to be fighting for the azan, and might just be, giving my life for it. But I wouldn't be surprised if this happens. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who was here. I think the Turkish president was here in Islamabad, and Musharraf closed down Islamabad. Wherever he was going to go, no more azan in those masjids because, in the Faisal Masjid, the biggest masjid in Pakistan, maybe the 5th, maybe 10th biggest masjid in the world. And Faisal Masjid became a tour, one of the many, visiting places of whoever was coming in. I keep forgetting who he was. But you know what? Masjid closed down. No more prayer here. The biggest masjid closed down for 2 days or whenever, for that day and before the night before that. No more azan here because this president is coming in. I mean, instead of showing him what the masjid does, he wanted to show what the masjid looks like because it's so big and so beautiful. He didn't want to show what the masjid does. You know what I'm saying? So he was trying to show a car without letting him drive the car. That's what he did. But since he was like, oh, you know what? This will be so weird, with a lot of people are going to come in to pray, so it's going to be a security thing. I mean, are you kidding me? Just let the locals pray there. Even if there's a security risk, why don't you pray there? You're going to a masjid, let him pray. Or if he's not a Muslim, let him see you pray. But of course, Musharraf, I'm pretty sure, doesn't even know how to pray. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised if, certain things are taken out of Pakistan, which we think this is Darul Islam. So I hope you understand the technicality of the word migration, the hijrah. There's a technicality. This is a very, very sensitive issue. So you can't just be playing with it. That, you know what, I want to go to Darul Islam, or, because I keep hearing this from little kids. Darul Kufr, are you in Darul Kufr? And I'm like, no, I'm in Darul Nifaq. This is very clear. Everyone's a hypocrite. Everyone's trying to play Islam and not literally going against it every single time they're going to get a chance in terms of its governance, in terms of its political infrastructure, the way its processes and law. I come from a country where the law takes a summer vacation. That's the country I live in. The law takes 3.5 months of summer vacation in Pakistan. More than 20 million cases are pending. More than 20 million. And the law takes a summer vacation every year for 3.5 months in my country. The law, there is no law. No more cases. Courts are closed for 3.5 months. That's Darul Islam for us. So you need to understand. When Ahmad did that, I hope people know about him. He came from India. He migrated with his wife. And he's like, you know what? You just opened Darul Islam for us. That's what you said. La ilaha illallah. And 3 years later, he was like telling his wife, and he literally said, he went home to his wife, was like, pack your bags and let's run. And the wife said, where are you going? He said, not going, migrating. That's hijrah. You know where he migrated to? Hijrah to South Africa from Pakistan. Hijrah. Because, he literally wrote about this. He spoke about this. YouTube it, you'll find out the detail. It's a very long interview we gave. It's like, you guys are doing the exact opposite of what Islam requires. And you are lying to everybody in the world? You know what I'm saying? So hijrah for Islam outside Pakistan happened. By one of the most famous scholars that ever lived from this soil. So it's not that simple. I hope you know what I'm talking about. You know the culture of Pakistan. I hope you were aware of Sibtain, right? You had a little bit of an accent. I'm not sure whether you are from Pakistan or not. So let's just take last question from a girl, because I've taken 5 out of 5 from boys. So instead of going through a country, I'm just going to go through the gender now. This last question, make it a short one, please. I gotta. Khadija. England. Finally, we land in England.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
How old are you, Khadija?
I'm 16 years old, and I have a question for you.
Please, go ahead.
So I have 2 questions, but I'll ask both of them. But if you have time, you can answer both. So the first one is that as a girl who my parents are really practicing, and I'm really practicing as well. And I wear the hijab, I go to school, and I try my best to represent Islam. But the thing is, I take on most leadership roles. For example, in a group, I'd be the team leader, and I'm the head of the school council in my school. I try my best to represent Islam in whatever I do. So I was thinking that because of that, I have to raise my voice. I have to, interact with the opposite gender. I try my best to do whatever Islam says that a Muslim woman should do. And then I hear stuff like a woman shouldn't raise her voice, a woman shouldn't do this, do that. But I have to do that because I'm taking on those roles. But at the same time, I want to represent Islam at its finest. So how, as a Muslim woman, should I take on leadership roles or like those roles in society? And how should I conduct myself? And the second question is that because I have to study Christianity over here in religious studies, I know for a fact that my iman, alhamdulillah, is really strong on the fact that the Quran is the word of God. But how am I supposed to tell my friends who are Orthodox Christians that we believe in Jesus? So I've had many conversations with them, and I've told them so many times that I tried to explain my point, but the thing is, I always don't know how to explain it to them. So I saw a video of you. My mom showed me a video that Jesus wasn't the Son of God, and how the Trinity isn't, really truthful, and how am I supposed to make that clear for them? Because for me, it's really clear. But how am I supposed to do that for them? Because I really want them to, you know, come towards Islam, and I've seen them question it as well. But I just don't know how to make that convincing argument. So if you could please just help me out with that.
Why do you want to make that argument? You want people to come into Islam?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute myself. So
It's all right. Just stay with me, Khadija. Okay, stay with me. I wanna make sure I get this this question right. You are in a Christian school?
no, I'm in a public school, but
Okay,
I'm
so you get yeah. So you were talking to 16-year-olds in your class,
Yeah.
mostly?
Yeah.
Okay, and you wanted to make sure that you prove to them that there is no son of God.
Like I have to study Christianity, and I don't press on this subject too much. But whenever we have discussions, they always ask me questions like, why does this Islam believe in this and that? And then I explain things about Islam to them. So they ask me about what our belief in Jesus is, and when I explained it to
Tell me
them,
something. I'll tell you, there's a problem that I want to solve. Muslim clerics in England and America, you know what they're trying to, they try to give you that job that that it is one of our jobs, that as Muslims, that we are going to convert everybody into Islam and make Muslims. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Make everybody a Muslim. And you feel that certain pressure when you're talking to a Christian, and even if he or she's your best friend, somehow you're under some pressure, even if you're having coffee, that you know what, you know, you're preying on him. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, how am I going to talk about Jesus?
yeah.
Why would you do that? These people have done it to us. You know, it's not your job to keep converting people. Okay.
But like, okay, my mom's told me that the Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, said that if you hear like a hadith or something, you should always share it. So I don't know
I'm going
why.
to come to that. I'm talking about you talking to Christians and, you know, one less Christian in the world philosophy. You know, come out of this. Okay.
Yeah.
You're 16, you should know that. Now, the fact that even if you convince anybody, tell me something. Or maybe you're not old enough for this one. Hold on. Let me test it. Are you the eldest in the siblings? You seem like you're the eldest.
Yeah, I'm the eldest.
Yeah, you have that tone on you. Okay, tell me something. Can anybody convince you out of Islam by just giving you arguments against the Quran?
No.
Think about it. Go through this with me, okay? Stay with me. Think about, imagine somebody sitting in front of you, and imagine somebody who you like, okay? Some good-looking girl, very humble, very subtle, who you look up to, okay? Could be anybody. I mean, I don't know you, right? So think of the real person here. Can you do that for me?
Yeah.
Okay. Give me her name.
Chris.
Okay, Chris. It's a girl?
Yeah, girl.
Okay.
She's a Catholic.
Okay. So Chris, she's 17, 18?
She's about my age, 16.
Okay. She's 16, she's Chris, she's alone. She's with you, and you're talking to her for a few hours, and you're in a very positive environment. And she's using all of this and she's got a book, and she's opening, and you're talking to her, and she's very well versed in knowing the Quran. Okay, and then she starts picking out the ayahs and tells you that this ayah doesn't really make sense in mathematics. And she has some certain reservations, and she's being very polite, okay? She wants you to explain to her, okay, as just a person, She's not representing all Christians. She's just talking as a girl. I mean, this is the best case scenario I'm trying to plot here. And she's giving you this subliminal message that there's a problem with the Quran. And this verse doesn't really make sense, you know? And it's got an error. Your book has an error. She's not saying it, okay? She's not saying it. She's implying it by just asking such an amazingly well-intended question. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I am.
Now think about what your brain is going to go through. It's called dissonance, okay? You have this friend, you have this friendship, and you have a belief, and you have this emotional connection with the book. Now, how hard is it for you not to make this a Muslim versus Christian? And what's your name? Khadija. Khadija v. Chris. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
How hard?
Yeah.
Because it's terribly hard. You know, all of a sudden you're gonna become a Muslim, and she's not gonna remain Chris to you. She's gonna become literally a christened Chris. You know, she's very
Yeah.
christened now. She's as christened as it gets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
You
do.
can you feel that cataclysm going on in that conversation?
I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you do to every Christian every day, Khadija. That's what I'm trying to tell you.
But like,
No.
I get,
I don't want you to stop doing it. I want you to understand it.
yeah, I understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, now you got to work through it. Okay, how are you going to work through it? I'll tell you how you're going to work through it. You are Chris to every Christian when you're talking about Jesus, because you are a Muslim woman wearing a hijab, and you talk with the tone on you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Now that bothers people. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're actually talking about something that they're very, very close to emotionally. They don't want to think about it. They want to feel it. You see what I'm getting you at?
Yeah.
Now stay with
see.
me. Yeah, stay with me. Now, you're not going to talk about why there is no Trinity in the Bible. You're going to stay for the next 10 years as to why there is Jesus in the Quran. You see the difference in the angle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Forget talking about Trinity. Talk about how high Mary is inside your book. You understand me?
I do.
Yeah.
So
Now,
I
with Chris's and all of the other girls, talk about Mary more than Jesus, okay? Stick to her. Now, coming back into understanding the next step. The first step is the existence of Mary and Jesus in the Quran. But that's not something which is going to stick. I'll tell you why, because they don't like the Quran. They're trained into not liking any other book. If they were to be following the King James, would have been easier. By now, I'm thinking you know what I'm talking about. You're 16. But she's a Catholic. There's a bigger problem to solve here.
Yeah.
So, but you know what the best part about Catholics is? Catholics are way more into Mary than in Jesus, and the Protestants are way more into Jesus than Mary. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what you do is, and I'm not talking about Mary Magdalene. You know that, right?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I know
So-
you're not.
I know. So you go into the book without talking. I'm talking about the Bible, without talking about Jesus. Without talking about Trinity, you go into their book and tell them to make you understand the love of Jesus. Okay?
Yeah.
You need to understand. And that's what you're gonna connect. That's the connection between them and Bible and the Bible. They don't believe in the Bible through their minds. They believe in the Bible through their hearts, because the Bible represents love to the Catholics. Okay?
Yeah.
So you need to represent that love, Khadija. Muslims don't represent the love of Jesus or around Jesus that Jesus is to the Christians when they convert. All of a sudden they get into arguments. It's like Muslim v. Christian.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You know what they're thinking? They're thinking Muslim v. Jesus.
Yeah, I get
Understand
it.
the problem here. This is not a game of chess. It's a game of life. You need to save them. If you really want to save them, then save them. Don't win from them. Lose to them. You know what I'm saying? Win their hearts, not their minds. You got to make them win. You got to make them winners, literally. And first step, anybody. You made a friend out of Chris, right? Were you talking about the Bible when you made a friend out of Chris? No.
No.
You gave something. You sacrificed a little bit of time or effort. You know what I'm saying? You shared the moment of heart with her, and that's why she's your friend, the way she is. Whenever it happened, I don't know when you were 8, maybe it happened 2 years ago. I don't know when you made friends with Chris, right? But it was not about the book. It was about the heart. And I swear to you, you have no idea. I know Christians. Christians love the Bible through the heart. Okay? They love Jesus way more than what Muslims are, the way Muslims are currently in love with our own prophet. And that's the problem I'm trying to solve in Muslims. They know so much about Jesus's love. They can quote you the way they can feel how Jesus is inside them. Every Christian is going to tell you, oh, I have Jesus living inside me.
Yeah. I have a clue about this.
Yeah, I have a memory about this statement. I've heard a million times. I have Jesus inside me. Have you ever seen or heard a Muslim saying, I have Muhammad inside me? Have you ever seen that? Heard that? Never.
Yeah.
You need to understand. So don't play that game, okay? They're making us play that's a wicked game, I'm telling you. But sahabas never played that game. Sahabas played this game that I'm trying to tell you. You know what Prophet ﷺ did? He rose to the love of Mary inside the center of Jew kingdom of Medina, inside Medina. He is the biggest banner for Maryam alayhis salam inside the Jew kingdom of Medina. Imagine that. Imagine you being a Christian in Medina, listening to that.
Yeah.
That's what you gotta do. You want to talk about Trinity? That's for the priests and the rabbis. For regular Chris's and, Jennifer's and Samantha's, love them into Islam. Love them into Islam. Show them the experience of love. Because I swear to you, they're going to love you into Jesus or Mary or whatever they want to represent. And they'll never tell you to leave Islam and come to Christianity. They'll never say it. They will say, love Jesus. Get Jesus inside you. That's why they got 7 billion. There are 3.5 billion of them. And we have the most correct book. And we can't even cross the 2 billion mark. We have to make babies to make more Muslims.
Yeah, I get this.
And that's exactly what Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying in the Quran. That you cannot change the minds unless I change the hearts. You see the meaning of the verse now?
Yeah.
Allah's going to change the hearts. That means you're going to hit the hearts. That's what Allah is going to change. If you want to keep hitting the minds, nothing's going to happen because Allah only changes the heart. You work on the heart, Allah is going to change the heart.
Yeah.
That's how it is, Khadija. That's how conversion is done. Okay, that's how Islam is done. That's how love is done. Okay, share your experience about love to Chris. You understand. You know, you're a girl. You know what I'm talking about. You're 16 now. You're not 6.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah, I know you do. I'm just saying, make sure I'm talking to a lot of your heart right now, even though I'm speaking to your mind because I'm giving you references and examples, right? If I started telling you stories about how I did that, all of a sudden this would have been a heart-to-heart talk. But there's so many people listening. I want to make sure every mind is attentive right now. Okay? I don't want to make it like a priest show. We call it a priest show. Talk about the heart only and start talking about what I went through and start crying and make everybody cry. That's one way. I'm just saying I could have chosen that way, but you're a pretty smart girl. You're 16. You know what I'm talking about. You know exactly how to put two and two together about things that I've said. Coming back to your first question, make your cluster in girls primarily, okay? Trust me, I don't know why girls are told that boys are smarter, and all of a sudden you wanna make sure boys think you're smart. Okay? That's the dumbest thing a girl can do, to try and impress boys that she's smart. That's the dumbest thing a girl can do, to claim that she's smart to boys. Or think that if boys call her smart, then she's actually smart. That's the dumbest thing a girl can do. Okay? So make bigger clusters, because you are in leadership role. You're in England. You're as active as anybody can get. So make bigger clusters. Don't think about hundreds, think about thousands. Influence, because you got social media on you now, okay? But you affect the girls. You speak their language, you speak their gender, you speak their experience. You cannot tell me a story ever, which I'm going to relate to, okay? Ever. Ever.
Yeah.
Can you do the math on the handicap? Oh my God. Isn't it ironic? I'm gonna know what you're talking about. I'm not gonna be able to relate to it. And any story that you're ever gonna tell, every girl's gonna relate to it.
True.
That's the kind of handle you have on girls and women. Okay? With half a brain, you're gonna conquer twice the women world. With twice the brain, you won't be able to conquer half the man's world.
Yeah.
You got, so there you go. So work towards where your strengths are, and you're going to be at ease as well, because you're not going to be talking to boys. And even if you have to talk to boys, it's not haram to talk to boys. If you're talking about Islam and bringing people towards the truth, it doesn't really matter what listening gender is, okay? But you shouldn't make it as a priority, okay? That, hey, you know what, I'm going to choose the boy wing and try and impress the boy as to how smart or how wise I am or how much of a Muslim I am. It doesn't really matter if what people think, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because most of all, I sit next to in religious studies, I sit next to a boy because I've been paired with him, and he's like a really religious Christian. And basically one day he and his friends, they all gathered around. They asked me why I wear the hijab and why I don't touch boys, and I had to explain all of that to them. So it really does get a bit hard because they all ask me questions all the time.
Well, are you studying science?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get it. Don't worry. He'll get it. But make sure you understand, if you are going to hang out with boys enough for a long enough time, you'll forget how steady the game plan was against you from Satan. And I swear to you, I'm telling you, I'm speaking through experience, okay? Most people are not going to get what I'm saying, so you are, so you know what I'm talking about. And you don't even know how deep you are into the mesh, okay? You won't even know that. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
The Prophet said about this very concept that, you know what, once you have your flock, of sheep, and you are inside the middle of the meadow, make sure that the last sheep that you have is also close to the middle of the meadow. Because if you are going to walk the edges, the sheep on the furthest of your own flock is going to cross your fence. You don't even know about this. So play it safe. Be in the center of your own meadow, okay? So which means that, you know what, there are some certain things which are not going to be in your control, and unless, of course, you are cautious. And I'll tell you this right now, with the kind of brains that you have and the way you can talk, you won't even know how slippery it gets, okay? Because boys are going to be falling around you. I'm telling you this right now. As a boy, I know how things work. So you need to be twice as cautious, okay? If you're any dumber, I wouldn't have told you the way I just told you everything.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck and Godspeed, okay? May Allah be with you all the time.
And I wanted to add something. My mom, she really pushes us to, listen to your lectures and apply them in our life. And she really has so many questions for you. So is there a way she can contact you?
Well, this is the way to contact me. Is she in the WhatsApp group, the way you got the invite?
Yeah, she is. She joins almost all the lectures, but she doesn't get a turn. I'm not sure if she's in this one right now.
Are you in the same house as your mother?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. Kind of weird, but okay, I get it. You should have known whether your mother is in the room or not. Okay, Khadija, I'm gonna let you go now. It was lovely talking to you. You are the reason. All teenagers across the world, Muslims, are the reason why we're doing these kind of shows. Okay, make sure you understand that. That's why I went in so much detail, because you are the future of Islam.
Yes.
Okay, you are the future. Make sure you understand the responsibility. Okay,
Thank
you
you.
are the future of Islam.
So my
Okay, may
mom
Allah
just
be with you.
joined me in my room, so she
No,
wants
there
to
you
talk
go.
to me.
I really
Yeah.
gotta end this. It's 4 o'clock in Pakistan, but say my salam to her. If you have a question,
Yeah, she has a question for you.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम साहिल भाई।
Assalamualaikum.
साहिल भाई, मुझे बच्चों के लिए ना टाइम नहीं लूंगी, मुझे बच्चों के लिए कोई आइम दे जो कि यहाँ लंदन में इनको जिस तरह आपने पढ़ा है वैसे ही बच्चे मेरे चारों पढ़े हैं। बताएं और भी कर जाऊं उनके पास।
कितने बच्चे हैं आपके?
मेरे माशाल्लाह 4 हैं, मेरे दोस्तों के बच्चे भी हो जाएंगे इंशाल्लाह।
बच्चे हो जाएंगे या बच्चे हैं?
बच्चे हैं, आई मीन उनको गैदर कर लूंगी ना, सबको इकट्ठा लेकर जाऊंगी फिर।
ये आप इसी व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप जिसमें आप हैं ना, इसके एडमिन से राब्ता करें एंड अरेंज अ सेशन, विल टॉक इंशाल्लाह। आई एम टॉकिंग टू टीनेजर्स एवरी डे इंशाल्लाह। ओके,
Oh, thank you.
you're doing a good job. Okay, your child, mashallah, that she's Khadija, Allah Taala इस बच्ची से बड़े काम ले।
इंशाल्लाह
हाथ
टीम
में
का
रखना है इसको।
साथ ही होगी इंशाल्लाह।
मुझे आवाज नहीं है मगर इंशाल्लाह ठीक है। अल्लाह ताला कबूल करे। आपका नाम क्या है?
साइमा इकराम।
ओके, I'll keep that in mind, ताकि आप इसी व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे जिस पे ये सेशन हो रहा है उसके एडमिन से राब्ता करें। विल डू अ सेशन विद ऑल द किड्स, बट मेक श्योर बच्चे एक ही तरह के हो, मतलब एक एज ग्रुप में फॉल करते हो। अगर ज्यादा हो तो कोई बात नहीं, छोटे बच्चों का अलग से ग्रुप बनाइएगा। 8 साल का बच्चा और 16 साल को इकट्ठा मत कीजिएगा, वो सेशन में ना बेचारे दोनों को नुकसान हो जाता है। ठीक है,
जी ठीक, ओके ओके सर।
बताइए, कैन स्पीक उर्दू?
जी मैं बोल सकती हूँ उर्दू। नहीं, अपन बोल रहा था।
Okay, nice.
That
ठीक है,
was my
that's good
brother.
stuff. Jump into Arabic now, okay? Jump into Arabic. Make sure you do.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you so much for your time. We'll just call it a night. Mahin, thank you for arranging this session. We're going to be doing this for overseas Muslims, inshallah, frequently. Our Scandinavian tour is scheduled in February for Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And we'll be doing it out of Copenhagen, Denmark, inshallah. And please make sure this is a free tour. And this is a tour for Muslim identity, where we will be focusing parenting techniques only. Any questions about that, please ask the administration or mail me at sahil.adeem@sourcecode.com.pk. We'll be announcing it so many times now because February is quite it will be 3-4 weeks before I travel, maybe even March. I'll be staying for 12 days, 10 to 12 days, moving to Toronto, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.